Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. I'm here at the ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre, and I'm joined by Adib Zalkapli, who is the Managing Director of the geopolitical advisory firm Viewfinder Global Affairs. Adib, thanks so much for joining me on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit. It's been quite a day today. This is we're recording this on Sunday, on the day that the ceasefire agreement was signed between Thailand and Cambodia, and Donald Trump presided over it, of course, with Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim as well. And Donald Trump used the words historic to describe the ceasefire agreement. He used the word momentous, and I do wonder whether you agree with that. Was this a momentous agreement that was achieved at the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit, or as some critics argue, was this merely symbolic?
Yeah, I think firstly let me address the second part of your question, whether this was a symbolic agreement. So any conflict settlement usually requires incremental agreements. Both warring factions will gradually take certain commitments. So it's not like one rigid document that will end hostility between both sides.
Right.
So last July in Putrajaya, we saw the first ceasefire agreement for both sides to end the hostility. And today in KL, the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accord, it's a bit more operational for both sides, to, for example, like surrender the captured soldiers, and also the involvement of ASEAN observers team. So it's a bit more operational, it's incremental, and in a way it's historic because within the short period we already had the evolution, the second iteration of the agreement compared to like previous or more recent conflicts, whether in Northern Ireland, in Bosnia, where I think the time between the first or the subsequent agreements a bit longer. And yes, I agree in a way historically this was, it was a historic achievement given the short time span between the two
So
agreements.
It started with the ceasefire in July and then moved on. So now that we're working out the pathway to peace, so to speak, when you think about who was involved, so I think there were reports that suggested that US and China diplomatic pressure played a role behind the scenes. And of course, we know Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim was involved in calling up the leaders to discuss a ceasefire agreement. Donald Trump now is claiming this as another notch in his belt in terms of peacemaking deals. Why do you think Trump is giving so much attention to this specific border conflict? What is it about the Thai-Cambodia border dispute that has him flying into Kuala Lumpur to preside over the Kuala Lumpur Accord?
Yeah. I mean, from the strategic perspective, the US cannot afford an escalation of conflict in the region. I mean, not just the US, and the other big power as well, which is why I think Trump is paying close attention to the conflict. And South Asia has not seen such conflict in a very long time. And given American exposure, America's interest in the region, it's only natural for Trump to spend a lot of his time. And of course, it's also consistent with the branding that he's projecting as the president of peace. So it helps in a way, so it covers both American strategic interests and also his personal branding as well.
Was it his victory to claim?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's very important the pressure that he put initially to force both sides to get to the negotiating table, and of course it was operationalized by Malaysia as the mediator that led to the Putrajaya ceasefire agreement.
Okay. Could you elaborate on that, Malaysia's role in the ceasefire agreement? The conflict was really quite an unexpected test for Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's leadership in terms of being an ASEAN chair, particularly because he also had informal advisors on Myanmar in Thaksin Shinawatra and also Hun Sen as his advisors. So he had picked those two countries to help him with Myanmar, and then ended up being an intra-ASEAN conflict within them.
Yeah. So I think firstly, Malaysia's role in peacemaking in the region is not new. Although I think in the past Malaysia was involved in settling conflicts between a state and non-state actors in southern Thailand and southern Philippines.
Okay.
I think there was some kind of Malaysian involvement there. This was, I think, first conflict involving two states in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia. So Malaysia's reputation helped, and the fact that the chairman this year is also kind of accepted as the strongman of Southeast Asia. I think the region has not seen a strongman for some time, and it's I think ASEAN is just kind of fortunate to have a strongman as the chair this year to help resolve the conflict.
Did the Cambodia-Thailand border dispute, the flare-up in tensions in July, did that expose ASEAN's weakness in terms of dealing with intra-regional conflicts? ASEAN prioritizing consensus, prioritizing neutrality, non-interference. Did it expose an underlying current there in the bloc?
Yeah, if there's anything it exposes, I think ASEAN's lack of the internal framework to deal with conflicts between states, which is why I think President Donald Trump's initial intervention was very beneficial to bring the two states together. I think moving forward, what ASEAN can learn from this is to have some kind of a framework to deal with future conflicts, and also to make sure that the ceasefire agreements and the subsequent agreements signed between Thailand and Cambodia will hold.
How vulnerable or how fragile is this ceasefire? Do you think it will hold?
For now, it looks like it will hold, with the support of President Trump and the fact that ASEAN is taking it seriously. But in terms of conflict settlement, we are still at a stage, perhaps you can call it confidence building. So basically to get both sides to accept the agreements, the two agreements can hold, try to fulfill it as much as possible with the support of ASEAN partners, and work towards the next evolution of the conflict settlement.
Right.
So perhaps another agreement in the months to come, or maybe in a year.
Yeah, check in constantly to make sure that there's progress with the peace talks. When you look back, so Malaysia will be handing over chair to the Philippines for the coming ASEAN chairmanship. When you look back at the year of Malaysia's ASEAN chair, how would you assess the performance? What would you say are some of Malaysia's hits, and if I may, Malaysia's misses as well?
Yeah, I think this year, 2025, has been I think the overused word is unprecedented year for the region. Challenges from Washington, the Liberation Day tariffs introduced earlier in the year.
Yes, we started out our chairmanship quite with a bang with the Liberation Day tariffs.
Yeah, and the border conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. But given the constraints of ASEAN, where major decisions, major powers are still held by the individual member states, and I think Malaysia as the chairman this year has managed to, I think, meet the expectations, or perhaps even exceed the expectation, especially in the early part of the year when the Liberation Day tariffs were rolled out. ASEAN managed to project unity in their response. None of the member states decide to retaliate against the US, but all countries chose to negotiate. Right. Of course, they negotiated independently because the mandate is with the member states to negotiate on tariffs. So, but yeah, so it is I would say a good year. Yeah.
Well, we expanded ASEAN with the membership, the ascension of Timor-Leste as the 11th member of ASEAN. Do you see Timor-Leste's ascension into ASEAN changing the direction of ASEAN anyway? Would ASEAN have to change to accommodate Timor-Leste, or Timor-Leste might bring value to the bloc by being the 11th member?
One value that Timor-Leste brings to the organization is the expansion, the geographical expansion of ASEAN all the way to the Timor Sea, an area you could argue under the influence of other major powers. So having them with ASEAN is always good for the organization, having expanded the area. But more importantly, I think this is also a test for ASEAN member states, whether they really subscribe to the idea of prosper thy neighbor, given how Timor-Leste is still at a very challenging stage of nation building, and it requires a lot of support, a lot of help, especially from richer members of ASEAN.
Right.
So this is actually a real test for ASEAN member states in the coming years.
In terms of Myanmar, addressing the Myanmar crisis, reducing the violence of Myanmar, do you see, did we make progress this year?
Yeah. I think progress on that front, it's fair to say, has been limited. And it's not ASEAN's fault or anyone's fault, rather, but I think there's a strong political will at the start of the year, at the start of Malaysian chairmanship, but it's distracted by other issues, and given the limited resources and the constraints of ASEAN, I think there's only so much the current chair and the ASEAN member states could achieve this year. So I guess it's up to the next chair to take the necessary actions.
The test for the next chair is big, given the elections
Yeah.
of the military juntas coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So what else are you watching for from this summit, Adib, if I may ask you? I mean, we are midway through, but in terms of all the big guns who are in town and all the sideline events that are happening, anything that's standing out to you that you're keeping a close eye on?
Yeah. So I think the summit is, if you look at the start of the Trump presidency, he started it a few months into his presidency. He launched the Liberation Day tariffs, followed by negotiations, offers and counter offers with multiple countries, including ASEAN member states. So this summit, in a way, is a follow-up to his action from when he launched Liberation Day tariffs and also the negotiations. So whether there's a new trade agreement signed here, these are all like a culmination of Trump's actions in April, in his quest for what you call fairer trade deals with other countries, and also how ASEAN member states could defend their interests as much as possible.
There was a concern before the summit began that the narrative of ASEAN would get drowned out by Trump mania when he was in town. Do you think that had been the case? Has ASEAN been successful in making its voice heard despite the presence of all these big guns in town, each with their own agenda and their own narrative?
Yeah. I think getting the US president to attend is a success in itself. And of course, naturally, the media will be attracted to the US president.
It was the same thing when Obama came,
yes,
wasn't
I mean,
it?
the 2015 when Malaysia was the chair. Yeah, it was almost the same atmosphere, almost the same excitement. So you can't really say the US president is overshadowing the summit, but rather the US president's presence helped with amplifying the importance of ASEAN.
Globally, right?
Yes.
So world media are now paying attention to what's happening in Kuala Lumpur for the ASEAN Summit. In the minute or so we have left, can I ask you what you expect for the next year of ASEAN as Philippines assumes chair of the bloc?
Yeah. So now that this year, this chairmanship is almost over, and I think Malaysia as the chair has managed to meet the expectations, or maybe exceeded expectations on certain areas, especially in the border conflict and also the projecting unity in the Liberation Day tariffs. The challenge for the next chair is, of course, to maintain the unity in how it responds not just to the US but also to the other major power, and also how the bloc can move forward in helping Cambodia and Thailand in maintaining the peace agreement.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, just judging from the response of the Philippines delegation here, there's a lot of excitement for taking over the chair of ASEAN. I'm Melisa Idris. I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more on Consider This. Thank you so much, Adib.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. I'm here at KL Convention Centre on the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit. Joining me here is Amir Fareed Rahim, Director of Strategy at KRA Group, which is an ASEAN-focused public affairs and political risk consultancy. Amir, it's been a very busy day.
It has been.
And many landmark agreements have been signed, particularly the Kuala Lumpur Peace Accords, a ceasefire agreement between Cambodia and Thailand. I want to talk to you a little bit about that because it came during Malaysia holding as chair of ASEAN, and it was a test for Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim's leadership. What do you think that conflict and its and the way it unfolded, including the ceasefire agreement, what does that reflect to you about ASEAN's ability to deal with intra-regional conflict?
So thank you, Mel, for having me on the show once again. I think it goes to show that even among, firstly, even among neighbors, friends, there could be issues, all right? There will be from time to time conflicts that we've got to deal with. So the conflict resolution mechanism that ASEAN has doesn't just involve ASEAN powers. So we are open to having other dialogue partners or whomever who is trusted. Key is it is accepted by not just ASEAN but the country in conflict as well. And in this case, if we see, we had to deal as the chairman of ASEAN this year. Malaysia has had to deal with this legacy issue of border conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. Every 10 years, 15 years or so, conflict erupts there. Because these are real issues with borders, people living there. And of course, you've got to deal with it from time to time. So what this year has shown is the ability of ASEAN to be open to receive, not just receiving help from others. In this case, the US and both, not just the US, but it was also China that played a part in putting together this peace deal. But of course, as chairman, Malaysia provided the sort of safe space. We convened the meeting, and we've got to give credit to the chairman, our Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim, because he made the effort to make sure these two parties sit, right, and talk. And of course, President Trump from DC, as well as our Chinese counterpart, all help in making sure that the region becomes what we always pride ourselves on being, a zone of peace and stability. So that is something that ASEAN needs to continuously work on.
When you think about the lack of the institutional capacity, the lack of an ASEAN framework to deal with conflict of its member countries, and the fact that Malaysia had to resort to leader-to-leader intervention, is that something that requires reform in the future?
I think so.
Oh,
You're
good.
absolutely. We need we need to firstly institutionalize these things better. Okay, then only we talk about reforming some of these institutions. But having said that, the problem I see, this is in my opinion, from what my observation is, once you institutionalize things within ASEAN, you're buried in the bureaucracy. So things decisions are not made fast enough, and therefore I think the shortcut to this is personal leader-to-leader intervention. That at the end of the day, you have to focus on the bigger picture, which is keeping ASEAN together. We are not a political union like EU. We are, as much as we are a grouping, it's a loose grouping in that terms, in terms of legality. It is not the same as
not a single market.
Not a single market and all that you have with the EU.
So when you look back at the year of 2025 of Malaysia's chairmanship as ASEAN, and we're handing it over to the Philippines, talk to me about the year that we've had, but also what you expect in the coming year with the Philippines, given that the Philippines has a different leadership style, Bombong has a different leadership style, different relationship with the US and China. How do you see that playing out?
So the tone of the leadership is always set by the leaders of these countries themselves, and you can see with us, Malaysia, with a theme chosen, inclusivity and sustainability. It's all about deepening relationship, but building for the future. So of course, some of the things that I want to see, I think, and sorry, if we look at the year as a whole, 2025, we were thrown curveballs, right?
Yes.
And yet we survived curveball in terms of economy, the reciprocal tariff issue, and then I wouldn't say that Thai Cambodia is a curveball, given that it is a legacy issue, but these are issues that we did not anticipate to happen this year in the year of our chairmanship, and we've had to deal with it. And I think Malaysia has dealt with it rather well. Of course, this is patting ourselves on the back, but other people have also said that we've risen up to the challenge. But what is important is making sure that ASEAN doesn't just remain a talk shop. We need to see more economic benefits, because if the economy is not growing, then the glue that keeps us together isn't that. So we need to look at the future. That's why sustainability must be linked with advances in digitalization. That is why I think that one of the missed opportunities is making sure that we press hard enough on DEFA, Digital Economic Framework Agreement. Of course, we will reach substantial conclusion here in Malaysia, but we fall short of signing the deal now. But having said that, I believe Philippines in 2026 as the chair would want to prioritize the signing of DEFA as well, because everyone sees the potential of the digital economy. And this is because I've been saying this for years and years. We talk about intra-trade being at 21 to 25%. This is your answer.
Right.
You have when you unlock the potential of digital economy, you encourage MSME to participate in the online digital economy. You are sharing that prosperity. Everyone is growing, not just the big companies benefiting from ASEAN, but the small ones as well.
Amir, so the limitations of ASEAN is the fact that chairmanship rotates every year and all the institutions rotate as well, right? But the secretariat is the only thing that remains institutionalized, so to speak. How do you think Malaysia can continue a leadership role within ASEAN, even though we're no longer chair? Is there a role to play in terms of leadership in the bloc?
So I think it could be depending on causes that is close to our, which is linked to our foreign policy or economic policy, something that we want to champion. For instance, probably we would not have, this is just thinking out loud, we may not have like a ASEAN-wide stand on the reconstruction of Gaza, for example. But Malaysia, because it is an issue that is close to our heart, close to Malaysians generally, it's something that we could push in a smaller kind of like groupings, not just the big, because ASEAN works in a consensus, right? So everyone has to agree, but that means it could suffer from policy paralysis because it's a bit too slow. So you can work in smaller groupings with things that that are close to our heart. Secondly, Gaza is just an example, but probably we need to continue building on the theme that we chose for this year, inclusivity and sustainability. And how does it benefit Malaysia at the end of the day?
So one of the things that I've noticed that has happened in the past few days of the ASEAN Summit is because all the world leaders have converged in Kuala Lumpur, we have the attention of global media. So there's been a lot more conversation about ASEAN globally. Countries, people, governments who didn't even know what ASEAN was previously now seem to know. What is it you think they're seeing? What is the selling point of ASEAN for these countries? And are we getting that narrative right?
So I think finally, of course, with certain celebrity factors, celebrity leaders
in town,
coming to town and all that, people give more attention to Southeast Asia. But having said that, it's great to finally put Southeast Asia on the radar of not just the policy experts, policy community in the West, but also the business community in all parts of the world. The biggest selling point, again, for ASEAN is our neutrality. We are friends with everyone. We engage the superpowers. We don't suck us into your battles, US and China. We are fiercely neutral. I'm going to defend that. All right, so that is one, the biggest appeal. Second is, of course, the market size, 680 million population. We are the fifth most populous, fifth largest economy, moving into the top 4 in 2030. 3.8 trillion market. Now, 200 million more or less of middle class. So half of that is below 30 years old. Like today, I was reading up Timor-Leste, median age 20.8.
Absolutely.
It's very young.
Yes.
So we're gonna. This is a region that is stable and relatively a growth rate 4 to 5% for the past 10 years. This is a great place to come, invest, pay attention to, and we are not just one part of Asia. We are a central focal point in Asia. So do not give Southeast Asia a miss. That is the message that we need to set out to the world clearly and proudly.
Thank you so much for being on the show with me today. Amir Fareed Rahim there, wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.